So I think when we look at that founder's trap and the difference in the mindsets, your team becomes your most valuable asset. But this is absolutely critical. You can't look at them as a cog in the wheel and an expense. You have to look at them as an asset, as an investment that you're going to nurture. They are an investment. And any one of your investments, like real estate, what do you do when you buy real estate? You go, what do I need to do to increase the value of this property? When you have making an investment inside of a person, you go, what do I need to do to increase the value of this person?
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is a podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsurancerisk.com. Today, my guest is Charles Gaudet. Charles is the CEO of Predictable Profits. He has helped clients generate over $1 billion in revenue by solving the founder's trap, where successful entrepreneurs become their business's biggest bottleneck. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Charles Gaudet about escaping the founder's trap. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CREPN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Charles Gaudet. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I'm delighted you're here and looking forward to our conversation. But before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Awesome. So I've been an entrepreneur since the age of 4. Never had a traditional quote-unquote real job. After graduating from college, I started a business that was nominated by Ernst & Young as being one of the nation's best seed stage companies. It was subsequently selected as such by a company called Venture One. By 24, I created my first multi-million-dollar business. After that, I continued to build and grow companies until 2010. At that point, somebody offered to pay me to help them grow their business, and I started Predictable Profits over here. Over the years, since 2010, we've taken many, many companies over the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list. Recently took a company from $950,000 all the way up to $46 million within 6 years. And they're significantly greater at this point right now, working on a plan to get them over to $100 million. With the work that we've done recently, it got the attention of quite a bit of the press. The International Business Times calls me the go-to business coach for 7- and 8-figure companies. MSN recently put out a report naming me the leading coach for 8- and 9-figure CEOs, because I work with 6, 7, 8, and 9-figure CEOs. So, it got that attention. Yahoo Finance calls me the CEO Whisperer. DM News named me as the #1 marketing and sales thought leader in 2025. Miami Wire named me as the #1 CEO to follow in Florida, and I could go on. But the reality is that as much as my ego would like to say that it's me that has gotten that attention, it really comes down to the operating system, and it really comes down to the process and the team that's put that process together. And it's for the founders that are stuck in the trap, asking themselves questions like, how do I grow my company faster? Or some months are feast, some months are famine. How do we bring more predictability into our revenue? Or the third one is, look, the company's just far too dependent on me. How can we scale? And that brings me to where I am today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing the background there, and it sounds like you're more than qualified if you've been doing this since the age of 4. That's pretty impressive.
You got to remind my kids that sometimes, though.
Well, I'm
They still
sure. I
think
mean,
they
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah,
better.
yeah. No, I'm sure. I get a fair amount of that myself. But so the path. I mean, it sounds like you're clearly wired to be your own boss, kind of thing, and solve problems. And it sounds like you've got quite the resume to show you that you've been able to do that repeatedly, and then also help others. The the topic that the founder's trap, I wonder if you could take just a minute and describe what that looks like, and you know how do business owners, founders find themselves there?
Great question. See, there's really two hard parts to growing a business. The first one we all know, it's when we start, right? But as we started that business, we built it through hard work, word of mouth, and referrals. And we continue to push through that strategy. And oftentimes we can get to about that 1 to 3 million mark with that hard work, word of mouth, and referrals. And then we begin to fall into and slip into this trap. And that's called that founder's trap. And that's the second really hard point for growing a business. If you think about the classic definition of an org chart, you probably envision the CEO sitting at the top, and then you get the people reporting up to the CEO, and it just kind of like fans its way all the way down. And that's what we believe the org chart is. And as we build our business and we add more team members, we might draw it out like that. But the reality is for most founders, the org chart looks completely different. You have the founder in the middle, and you have marketing that is all dependent on the founder's word of mouth and referrals. And then you have sales that is dependent on the founder's ability to close. And then you have operations, which are dependent on the founder somehow getting involved and making sure that things are happening the way that it should and answering every question that the team has. And then you have the delivery of what it is that they're doing, always making sure that there's that founder oversight. So really the founder is in the center of the org chart. But you pull that founder out of the center of the org chart, what happens to the company? It just
Falls apart.
it
Yeah.
falls apart. And you see this all the time. You'll see these founders in the founder's trap when they're finally pressured by their significant others in their family to go away on vacation. But to them, vacation is liability. Because if they completely unplug, that means that there's going to be no sales, there's going to be no leads. And so it's beyond just the cost of the flights and the hotels at the vacation, it's the cost of all the lost revenue. So what do these founders do? They travel with their laptops, and they get up early in the morning to check their emails and get their work done. The family goes to the pool, they sneak away to check their Slack, make some phone calls, keep the business running. And so they're never actually really disconnected from the business. So I read the other day that the average entrepreneur works 62 hours per week, 7 days a week. And it's there's a lot of weight. And so when you think about founder burnout, that burnout exists because they're constantly on. They're never off. They're constantly on. And in the beginning, when you start your business, you got a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of passion because you're doing things within that zone of genius. But then as you go into this founder's trap, you're doing things that deep down you know you shouldn't be doing. And as you do that stuff, it begins to suck your energy out. And you just burn out and you're tired of hitting up against the ceiling. And then it's at that point where you have to make this critical decision. You're either going to get yourself out of the trap or either you're going to sell the business or unfortunately you just end up slipping down this road and you lose the company. The thing though is when you're in the founder's trap, the interesting predicament is that you can't work your way out of the founder's trap. Because the harder you work and the more successful you become, the deeper you fall into the founder's trap. More leads means that you have more sales calls that you're still trying to close yourself, and that just fills your calendar more. And then as you bring in more clients, that means that you're still even more involved in the actual delivery and the management of those clients. And you think, well, if I hire more, that's great. But then you hire more, but now you're answering more questions from the team. And the dangers behind success when you're deep into the founder's trap is you start to get more fires. There's more fires. You got team issues, you got delivery issues, you've got clients that aren't getting responded to on time, and that can take down a company as well. So at some point, we have to figure out what are the systems that have to be put in place that allow us to then begin to remove ourselves out of the founder's trap, so that all the growth isn't sitting on your shoulders, and you're able to look back and realize that now you have a whole company enrolled in your growth. And if you want to know the best feeling in the world, the best feeling in the world is when you go off on vacation, you can leave your laptop at home, and you come back and you find out problems were solved without you, sales were generated without you needing to be on the phone, and the business was better. The business actually grew more while you were away. That right there, when you do that for the first time, it is literally the most wonderful feeling in the entire world. That's what I see as founder freedom. It's not working. Most of the successful people I know, they don't want to not work. They just want to work because they want to, not because they have to. And they're inspired by the work that they do. Founder freedom is knowing that you can choose what you want to work on. You don't have to be doing invoicing and sales calls and all that other stuff. And so that's escaping the founder's trap.
So, having been in business and worked with entrepreneurs, and been an employee at a small business, and lived this founder's trap, I'm curious. All of the symptoms you've described about feeling like they can't leave, they can't. If they leave, the thing will fall apart. What I'm curious if you're able to identify, or if there is one or maybe a couple of common traits or reasons why founders fall into this. Not because they're doing it, but is there like a fear of letting go? Is there a lack of systems? Is there a lack of vision that they understand how to do it? What is it that you identify, or is there a common thread that leads them to the trap?
I think my dad actually worded it best. My dad was very, very deep into the founder's trap. And I mean, he worked 7 days a week. He'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He'd work all day long. And that was just his MO. And every time I would say, Dad, we need to hire more people. We need to be able to build these systems. We need to be able to do this. He would say the same thing every single time. Nobody can do it as well as I can. And that was a false story that he would tell himself over and over and over again that kept him in the founder's trap, but also it created a ceiling on what he was able to earn. And so for a lot of people, it is this belief. Maybe they turn around and they go, you know what? I hired a salesperson and it didn't work for me. And I hired this other person and it still didn't work. It didn't save me any time. In fact, it created more headaches for me. And one of the things that drives me bananas is when I talk to business owners and they refer to their team as, I've got to babysit them all the time, and employees are headaches and all that other stuff. And, it drives me crazy because that is symptomatic of also something else. Either you hired the wrong person, you didn't create a culture that sets the expectations of here's the behaviors that are allowed and here's the behaviors that are not allowed. You don't have the right systems to empower the team in order to make decisions on their own, right? You don't have a strategy. So much of it is just built on, again, that hard work, word of mouth, and referrals. And so when you have the right team, you're not babysitting anymore. In fact, when you have the right team, they become your most cherished, valued assets that you have. So much so that you change your mindset from babysitting to now you look at them and you go, what can I do to help them succeed so much more in their role and help them achieve their own personal goals and ambitions? And you come together as this unified force. When I took off to Italy and I left my laptop behind, only one person was able to reach out to me, and that was my chief of staff. And it's not like nobody else on my team could. It's just they wanted to give me the space. And even with my chief of staff, it was just touching base. Hey, just want to know, how's everything going? Everything's going great. And he would remind me all the time, Charlie, you don't have to check in. I have your number. I can call you if there's an issue. You have to trust me. But knowing that the team actually had my back, that the team genuinely wanted me to disconnect, that the team genuinely wanted me to come back and be proud of them, proud of what they were able to do and how much more they were able to get done. It was amazing for me. Every single day, I sat in this place of gratitude because I'm like, God, I am so grateful to be surrounded by so many wonderful people that are all working on this unified mission. And so I want to reward them. I want to make them richer. I want to make them happier. So I think when we look at that founder's trap and the difference in the mindsets, your team becomes your most valuable asset. But this is absolutely critical. You can't look at them as a cog in the wheel and, an expense. You have to look at them as an asset, as an investment that you're going to nurture. They are an investment. And any one of your investments, like real estate, what do you do when you buy real estate? You go, what do I need to do to increase the value of this property? When you have making an investment inside of a person, you go, what do I need to do to increase the value of this person? You give them the training, you give them the systems, you may invest in coaching for that individual person. Because if you invest in the person and you make work the best part of their day, they're not going to want to leave you, and they're going to want to work even harder because they have a greater purpose. And you know what the cool thing is, Darren? There's so many people that will work for us. When work becomes the best part of their day, they could go somewhere else sometimes and make more money somewhere else, but they don't want to. Because when you bring in A players, it's not the difference of making 10,000 more somebody else or whatever somewhere else. It's how does it make me feel when I show up? Am I inspired? Do I love the people that I work with? Do I love the work that I do? Do I love the impact that I'm making on the clients? And that is much different. I mean, my kids even adore my employees. And my employees adore my kids. Like, it's a different environment when you set up the right culture.
Yeah. No, I'm listening to you, and I guess the question I have is, if somebody's caught in the trap, how many of the people that you've worked with or that you've known have been able to figure it out on their own to get out of the trap?
So, will it happen? It will happen. The best example I can give you is, recently I'm in the kitchen. I say to my wife, "Where's the salt?" She said, "It's right in front of you." I have been looking everywhere. I can't find the salt. Can you just come over here and just find the damn salt? I'm telling you, we don't have any. My wife reaches over my shoulder. She grabs it from right in front of my face and she puts it down. And she goes, "It's right here." See, the thing is with founders, we're so entrenched in the work that we're doing that we don't see the obvious. The stuff that I share with you, Darren, you and I could sit down and I could share you this stuff. You're not going to sit there and go, "Oh my God, this is like, I can't believe this. This blows my mind. Never in a million years." It's become such common sense because deep down you know it. I mean, you're already a successful guy. You've had a lot of success throughout your life. So It's just takes somebody else to be like, hey, man, this is what you need to do. We have so many things going on right now. Most of the successful people that we work with, and it doesn't matter if you're six figures or you're doing $1 billion, they just go, look, I got so much going on. Just tell me what's the most important thing I need to focus in on right now. That's it. Just tell me the most important thing. And then it's that clarity of helping them through the implementation to make sure that they're actually doing the right things in the right order. So this isn't some type of like hack or, whiz bang strategy. It's about, I need to know what's the most important thing that I need to be doing right now in the order that I need to be doing it. And you just start laying in this sequence, and it's great. Here's another example. Marketing, right? So many people think that they do marketing. And this was a conversation I had with a CEO not too long ago. He says, well, we do marketing. I said, well, see, this is the funny thing. Nobody can do marketing. Nobody. Nobody can do marketing. And he goes, all right, now I'm like really confused. What do you mean nobody can do marketing? Marketing is a function. And we have to break marketing down into a function so you understand how effective you are generating those leads. It is a function of how you create demand. It is a function of how you then capture that demand, and a function for how you nurture that demand. So now let's break down everything you're doing into those three buckets. How effective are you at creating that demand? Most people, not only the six-figure entrepreneurs, I had a $500 million CEO look at me with a complete blank stare on his face. He said, I don't know the answer. I said, how effective are you at capturing demand? Oh, I know, thousands of leads every day, blah, blah, blah. Okay, got it. Boom. You know how to capture demand. What about that nurturing that demand? How effective are you at nurturing demand? I don't know that we do that. And for most people, if we just look at marketing, let alone anything else, 2/3 of their entire marketing function is operating in the dark or not operating at all. And so you just put the systems in place in order to capture that demand, in order to create that demand, make capturing more effective, and then nurture that demand, and then things start to happen. And so this is what we call setup. It's part of the predictable profits operating system. That part right there is called setup. You need to have a very strong setup as the basis for sales. See, Darren, I'm going to guess when you started your first business, the world was a little bit different, right? We didn't have access to the information like you and I have right now. I mean, when I started my first business, we were still using the yellow pages. Crazy,
Yep. Yep.
right? But now our consumers are much more informed. I mean, when I went to go buy a car the very first time, I still remember going to the car lot and meeting with a salesperson, being like, "So show me what you got. Show me what you got." I was expecting them to educate me. Now, I go to a car lot. I do not want a salesperson to bother me. I know which car I want. I just want to test drive it to confirm my assumptions. And then do not interfere. I know I want to buy it. Don't give me anything else. Support me in this journey. I'm a much more educated buyer. That's what happens today. It's consumption drives conversion. When you engage with somebody, if you engage in a website and they say, request a quote, that's their call to action, request a quote. In most cases, Darren, if you go to a website, let's say you want to buy a software program as an example, right? And it says request a quote. What are you more likely going to do? Are you going to fill out the form, or are you going to go to a competitor's website to see what it really should be costing you?
Yeah, no, I think today it's as much DIY and kind of, education kind of thing that goes on. I mean, it's just because if the site you're on doesn't have it, there's another site, and you can get the education.
You ready for this one? What percentage of sales do you think will require a salesperson by the year 2030?
I'm gonna say it's a lot less than it used to be.
0%.
Zero?
100% of all sales is expected to happen by the year 2030 without having to work with a salesperson. This was confirmed by Gartner. Was it Gartner or Forrester? I think maybe it was Forrester and then McKinsey in addition to our research.
So
Now,
100% of all sales?
100% of all sales. 100% of all sales. Not 99, but 100% of all sales. Now, your listeners are scratching their head. And they're going, I don't understand how this works. And this, by the way, it doesn't matter. I think it was Forrester that said this is true for all sales over 500,000. I believe it was McKinsey that said it's even true for sales over $1 million. So it doesn't matter the size of the sales. So now the listeners are scratching their head. And they're going, okay, wait a minute. I'm trying to figure it. I don't know. This is weird. I'm trying to understand how this works. What this means is that by the time I come to you, I will have already made the decision I want to work with you. I will still need you to design the offer for me. To just say, okay, look, Darren, I've already decided I want to do business with you. Now, let's sit down and let's take a look at what that looks like. But I don't need you to tell me anymore. Because at this point, I've already done my research. I've looked at the reviews. I've looked at the competitors. I've looked at all the information that's available to me. The average person in 2019 looked at 17 different sources of information before making a buying decision. In 2021, that went up to 27 different sources of information. Last year, it was averaged about 36 different sources of information before making a buying decision. What's happening now is you go to AI and you start looking at where the trends in AI. You start typing in what it is that you're looking for, and AI is going to help you make those buying decisions. And of course, a lot of that I'm referencing is because I've been using some of the software that hasn't yet been released to the public and some of the beta programs that are out there. But you're going to start seeing some of those beta programs becoming live this year, and you're going to start seeing when you start typing in an inquiry, it helps you make these buying decisions. Atlas from ChatGPT. They don't even take you to a website anymore. Atlas will turn around. That's more live. You can actually get that now. But Atlas, you just type in what you're looking for. It begins to break down. You could do this. You could do this. Here's some other competitors. Would you like me to give you some more? 90%, I think, was the last stat that I saw. 90% of RFPs right now are already being influenced by AI. This is the world that we live in. We live in a discerning environment.
So AI is educating the consumer to where, are you saying that the function of sales within an organization will be more order taking? I mean, is that
more like designing? They're going to be more
Design.
client experience specialists, right? I mean, over here where I live, they got the Tesla dealership. They removed the Tesla dealership, right? Why? People just want to buy the Teslas on their phone now. They just buy it on the app on their phone. Because I don't need to go in a dealership. If I know I want a Tesla, I'm just going to buy it on the phone. You look at, I believe it's Carvana. Carvana right now, you can go ahead and you can buy a car. And so you'll buy it. They're going to ship it over to your house. They'll take your old car and they'll move it away. And they'll say, look, you have 1,500 miles, or CarMax, one of the two. You have 1,500 miles. Give it a shot. If you don't like it, let us know. We'll take the car back. No problem. And so if we look at just the way that the buying behaviors are happening right now, people want to make the decisions on their own. Now, you and I come from a different generation. In other words, like, we're used to picking up the phone and speaking with a salesperson, and we're used to that type of journey. Millennials and Gen Z, they are becoming the bigger and bigger force into the marketplace, and they are the bigger consumers. Watch a millennial and Gen Z when they try to communicate with their parents. They don't even pick up the phone anymore. They text their best friends. They text their parents. They text their siblings. They text their husbands and their wives.
Oh.
So we're saying, hey, I know you don't talk to your parents anymore, but this is sales and this is different. We're more important. We want you to pick up the phone and call us. Oh, wait, you don't watch live TV anymore because you don't want to be able to sit at 5 o'clock in the evening to find that TV show and watch it at 5 o'clock and sit through it when we want to broadcast it. No, you don't want to do that. You want to consume it on your own time, whatever that is. And so, but we're saying, look, because we're different, we're in sales, we expect you to fill out a form, schedule a call with us, be available for that call. And if it's a 2-call close, then it's like, be available for that call, then wait a couple days, then we'll have another call. And then by then, hopefully, we'll convert. Now, a lot of sales still happens that way because we don't know any different. And most companies are still doing it, so it's acceptable. But more and more and more, and that's why we're sitting here in 2026, more and more and more, you're beginning to see that shift of empowering the buyer to make decisions on their own so that they can buy on their own terms the way that they want to buy.
Yeah. No, I know the what you speak of is true. I think I've always been kind of a little bit slower to adopt the new technology, but just as you're describing some of the uses and how people are using AI and actually designing what they want, and the information is available to where they can continue to refine what it is they want, to where they can end up with exactly what they want and walk into a sales place or wherever it is they're looking to buy, and just basically, like you said, confirming what they believe to be true. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's so much information available at the in the palm of your hand there. That's pretty crazy. So let's back up here a little bit, back to the founder's trap. So we talked about what the trap is, and that the entrepreneur doesn't believe that anybody can do it as well. And part of the way to get out is have like a somebody from the outside look in, or just somebody else take a look at it and identify these things. So with that, how, I mean, I'm guessing if somebody's been unwilling to let go up to this point, how likely, I mean, is it like they have to hit a bottom where they're just like so tired that they're ready to give up and like they got to do something different, or where is it that you find people most receptive to the implementing or asking for help, recognizing what needs to be done and implementing it? I mean, where is it that you find that they're most receptive for that, or most willing
Well, I traveled with Tony Robbins for a bit. My wife and I invested, $250,000 to travel the world with him. And one of the things that, he would say is, people do more to avoid pain than to get pleasure. So, your first response is right. There at some point where people are like, oh my gosh, I've hit the ceiling. I know I'm capable of so much more. I feel like I've tried everything at this point. I don't know what I can do. I'm exhausted. I'm burning out. I need some help. And at that point, they're very receptive and they're very coachable and they're willing to make those decisions. There are other people, and there's plenty of them, that are so ambitious. They're growing and they're doing really well, but then they're starting to realize that they're working harder than they've ever worked before, but they're making less money. And in those moments when they're working harder than they've ever before and making less money, then in that moment, they're also coming to us and they're saying, I don't know why it feels like I'm working harder but making less money, but what do I need to do to get over that? And then we'll give them the answer. And there's certain areas where people are deeper in the trap. So it's not a cookie cutter type of scenario. In some areas, people are stuck in the trap because it's just so dependent on word of mouth and referrals and networking that they have to build the systems in order to remove that part of themselves out of the trap. There are some other areas in the trap where it's like, I'm doing all the sales myself. Okay, so we need to have the sales playbook and create a scalable sales solution so that other people can sell for you. And that also means redesigning the offer in many cases, as well as setting them up for success on hiring, and also making sure that they can actually sell just like the founder. So, there's a playbook and a system around that. And then there's that other area where it's a scale component of things. There's just way too much guesswork going on in the business. They don't know if they have the right people in the right seat. They don't know, is somebody performing at a level that they should be performing? There's so much variation going on. There's variation between how one person does something and variation between how another person does something. And as Dr. W. Edwards Deming would say is, variation is the enemy of quality. And I've then taken what he said and adapted it to variation is the enemy of excellence. We need to minimize that variation. Or there's this other element where in that scale component where entrepreneurs are feeling vulnerable because they have hired people, but then they realize and they're afraid if this employee leaves, I'm screwed. And so that's a very vulnerable type of position because they didn't build the systems to extract any knowledge from that person so it can be repeatable. Instead, what it is everything is between their ears and they hold the keys to the kingdom. If that person leaves, I'm screwed. So it is, in many ways, it's reducing risk. So there's a lot of risk that we're reducing. We're reducing the risk of leads being dependent on word of mouth and referrals. We're reducing risk in the constraint of you're the only one who can close. We're reducing the risk of saying there's too much guesswork that exists in the business. We're reducing the risk of saying I don't know if I have the right people, or reducing the risk of I know I got a great person, but if they leave, I'm completely screwed. So most of the time, the first thing that we do, and this is what easily helps take, no, I say easily, that's the wrong word, but what takes companies over to 8 figures and then beyond, it's let's identify the constraints and let's just remove the constraints. Most of the work that we do is remove the constraints. As we remove the constraints, it's like you're standing on a hose and you're trying to get more water out of the other end of the hose. So most founders turn around and they turn the knob and they're like, trying to get more water. They turn the knob, they're trying to get more water out. And eventually they can only get so much water. And then we come around and we tap them on the shoulder and we go, hey, pick your foot up. And they pick their foot up off the hose and they're like, boom, more water comes out. So when you look at the results that we've gotten, and the reason why the results are so uncommon from what you traditionally see in the industry, and such that exponential growth, so much of that has more to do with you're standing on the hose, just pick your foot up. So let's remove the constraint where you are actually the bottleneck. Darren, the most amazing thing, and I even have to admit this about myself, is that the number one constraint that's preventing you from growing, getting to the level that you need to be, isn't a strategy, isn't a system, isn't a that. It's you as a CEO and the founder. We are the number one limiter for that growth. When everything has to come through you, when growth is waiting for your sign off, growth is waiting for you to build something, to sell something, to do whatever, it's still you. When you are no longer that limiter, when you are doing nothing more than that visionary, when you're innovating and strategizing and everything else, and the company can handle it on your own, that's the next level of growth. That's where we all need to be.
No, it's well said, and I've certainly seen my fair share of entrepreneurs that hold themselves back just because the tight grip on trying to control everything and do everything, and aren't able to step away. But
we have to be okay with things being 70, 80% of the way that we would do it. Right? So, we just launched an initiative the other day. I looked at it and I'm like, I know I can do this better. But at what a cost? At a cost of me not doing something else that could also add growth to the business. But is it 70 to 80% of what I would normally do? Yeah, it is. And in some cases, I think I can do it better, but I let the team do it, and lo and behold, they did it better than what I would have done.
Right.
But we're just so used to doing things our own way that we just assume that our way is going to be better, but it's not always the case.
No, I live that all the time. I get it. Hey, Charles, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second. As I mentioned before, we started recording. By day, I'm an insurance broker. And as such, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid the risk. If we can't avoid it, we look to see if there's a way we can minimize the risk. And if we're not able to avoid nor minimize, we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. It's a risk transfer vehicle.
Yep.
And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation. It could be your clients, could be the economic forecast, could be supply chain, politics, whatever it is that you identify and consider to be the biggest risk. And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance-related answer. And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Charles Gaudet, what is the biggest risk?
Well, we mentioned risks earlier between the marketing risks and the operational risks, the sales risks, and all that other stuff. But right now, there's the risk of the unknown. And when I say that, every single business is being disrupted by AI already as it sits right now. The thing is if you look back at 2025 and you ask most people, have you been disrupted by AI? Most people will say no. But you'll ask them, okay, what have you found about your business? And they might say, well, leads have been harder, sales have been harder, business just feels harder. And when you ask them why, they'll say things like, make a political, maybe it's Trump, maybe it's the economy, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But this is the thing that they don't realize. They actually have been disrupted by AI. You see, 60% of all their organic traffic has disappeared between January of 2025 and December of 2025. That traffic disappeared because of AI. If you go to Google and you type in any of the buying search terms, you'll notice AI overviews start to respond with different answers and so forth. And they're not just giving the website. If you go to Perplexity and you type in a Perplexity, they give you answers. They don't just give you the website. If you go to Atlas, for those of you who are using it, or ChatGPT, they'll give you answers. They don't give you the website. And so the result of that is we are being disrupted by AI as it stands right now. Do we think that trend is going to continue? Well, yes. It's going to continue. And there's disrupting technologies that, unlike the web, when the internet came around and it was like, if you're not on the internet, then you don't exist. That took years before it got to that conclusion where if you weren't on the internet, that didn't exist. But now what's happening is Google didn't ask your permission to change their algorithm. They just did it. And that started to reduce the search. There's a new browser that's coming out that Google will be launching any minute now that's already on beta called Disco. Nobody really knows what's the impact that Disco is going to have on organic search behavior. I have a client, 8-figure client, and I was able to take him into the future and show him some of the future browsing activities that are going on and, when this goes live, the impact. And so we typed in a buying keyword, and what ended up happening to him is AI literally said, here's the reviews of everything that's going on. The thing is you can also do it yourself. Would you like me to create a system and the emails and this and that to do it yourself? And he was like, wait a minute, what's happening right now? And I'm like, this is why I'm showing you this, because we can prepare if we know in advance. Another situation, somebody turned around, he has a product, and I go, let me take you in the future. Let's take a look what's going to happen. He put it into the product, and it said, here's the reviews, and here's my concerns. Would you like me to show 3 other products based on everything that I know about you that might be better suited? And he goes, what is happening right now? I didn't think my competition would be AI. I thought it was going to be the other products in the category. And this is why we're taking you into the future. So we don't know how the extent of the disruption that we're going to be faced with, but we do know we're already being disrupted and we will continue to be disrupted. So there are still some core fundamental things that people can put into place and into action to minimize that disruption, have a strong, unique advantage, continue to put out great high value content that people will consume to build that loyal fan base, build your following, build your community, build that brand awareness, and that will help to mitigate, build partnerships. Partnerships are a wonderful way. That helps to mitigate the impact of AI, but everybody's going to be disrupted. The beautiful thing is that what you will see by the end of this year, the people who are the most strategic are going to have an outsized advantage over everybody else. And you will begin to see a K-shaped bit of the economy. The most strategic people are going to go ahead and they're going to get a massive advantage. And those less strategic are going to fall by the wayside. Because AI is they're fighting for survival. AI is going to continue to guide you towards the best competitor, the best company, the best service, the best product. And it's going to continue to align itself with the best. So you can't afford to be mediocre anymore. You have to be strategic.
That's a big risk. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, that is, and it's definitely staring us all in the face. That's pretty ominous there. Charles, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Awesome. Predictableprofits.com would be the best place. Again, that is predictableprofits.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Charles Gaudet. All I would ask is if you tell me that you were listeners of this podcast, I will go ahead and I will accept you if you say you were listeners of this podcast. But yeah, so predictableprofits.com, or then follow me over at on LinkedIn at Charles Gaudet. And I have a book, The Predictable Profits Playbook, and so forth. There's a bunch of resources that you can find over on predictableprofits.com.
Awesome. Well, Charles Gaudet, I cannot say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot and look forward to doing it again soon.
All right. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.